This lesson is about the blood. This is B2.27 in the textbook, and this lesson will form part of the circulatory system in your revision guide. Now, as you're watching this video, you will have also been emailed a worksheet that you need to complete. These worksheets, you can either stop the video and go through the worksheet as you're working, or you can do it after you've watched the video. There are boxes that look a little bit like this. These boxes need to be typed into. You need to save the worksheet as your name, and then you need to email it back to daniel.howe@woodsidehighschool.co.uk. This lesson then, so this is on the blood. For grade C, we need to recall some common components of the blood. For grade B, describe the function of the different components of each type of component in that blood. And for grade A, explain using evidence the problems related to blood diseases. So starting off really simple for grade C, the blood has four major components. The first one is plasma. That's about just over half the blood is made up of plasma. That's 55%. That's the yellow area you can see. We've then got the white blood cells and the platelets. The white blood cells you will have heard of before. I'm going to talk more in detail about those later. They make up less than 1% of the total blood, and then the red blood cells make up quite a significant chunk of 45%. Okay, so this is the point where you can either pause the video and fill in the grade C, stating the components of the blood, or you can just fill them in as we're moving along. Okay, the blood then. So as we mentioned, we have got the plasma. That is this area around all the different cells that you can see here. This is this like beige yellow area. We've got the red blood cells, which we've met before in biology module 1. We've got these, which are the white blood cells. Now you'll notice these can look a little bit different. And we've also got these purple shapes here, and this is just a representation. These are the platelets, and we're going to go into detail about each and every one of these now. So if we take the plasma then, the plasma is, again, making up 55% of the blood, and this transports all dissolved substances in the blood. Now we've met throughout a few years of science a lot of different substances that need the blood to be carried around. Some of these include carbon dioxide, when we're transporting carbon dioxide from the body in the blood back to the lungs for it to be exhaled. Certain substances which we've met in digestion that need to be dissolved into the blood in the small intestine and taken to different parts of the body where they're needed for respiration. And also in biology module 1 we met them when we were talking about hormones in diabetes and how the body regulates blood sugar. The next part of the blood we're going to focus on is the white blood cells. Now some of you may already know that the white blood cells are used for protection in the body. They're mainly used to make antibodies, and about half of the different white blood cells will make antibodies. And these antibodies are proteins which bind to microorganisms and destroy them. Now there's another way in which white blood cells can damage all the infection and viruses that may enter your body, and this is called phagocytosis. And this is the type of white blood cell that we'll carry out at the top on the slide here, phagocytosis. This basically means engulf the organism. So if we have a virus over here, the white blood cell would meander around the virus and engulf it and try to get rid of it. Now, this happens with all foreign cells which are in the body. So any cell which is come into your body which your body doesn't recognize, and your body recognizes these cells from the proteins which are in the cell surface membrane. This is very important because of the making of the antibodies. Quite a lot of exam questions will link in protein synthesis, yet again, to white blood cells and how they work. Now the next part of the blood was the platelets, and this is something we've not really met before. Now platelets are tiny fragments of cells, and they don't have a nucleus. They're very, very small, and they are very, very useful to us. Platelets will have played a part in all of your lives if you've ever had a cut or you've ever been bleeding from your skin surface, because these will help your blood to clot and ultimately allow that scab to fall over your skin and reconvene that layer of skin so that you don't lose too much blood. And the final part, probably the part which we're more familiar with, are the red blood cells. Now we need to go into a little bit of detail about the red blood cells, maybe more than we've talked about previously in science. We know that blood cells contain hemoglobin, and hemoglobin is a chemical which is inside the red blood cell, and this allows the oxygen to combine to the red blood cell. So we know that red blood cells are used for carrying oxygen around the body. There is an equation that we need to know when it comes to this, and this is the hemoglobin combining to oxygen and forming oxyhemoglobin. Now this is the symbol we've never met before. Okay, and for those of you going to do A level, you meet this symbol. This symbol means the reaction can go in both the forward direction for the top arrow and the backward direction as well. Now we need to talk a little bit about why the red blood cells are adapted to their function. And we know that the red blood cells cover a large surface area, and this is because they have what we call a biconcave disc shape. In other words, they're a disc which has a little dimple in the top and on the other side in the bottom part of the red blood cell. And this increases the surface area of the red blood cell. And they also don't have a nucleus, which again increases the area in which they can have hemoglobin combining to the oxygen. Now this is the point where you need to complete task 2. Again, either pause the video or fill it in after the video. But you need to describe each part of the blood, and you've got all the parts labelled here. So you've got your plasma, white blood cells, red blood cells and platelets. Type that into each of the boxes. Okay, so using evidence. Now this is for grade A. Now this can take the form of any given scenario. So the examiners could give you some data. They could draw on your knowledge from grade C and grade B about knowing the different parts of the blood and what they do, and give you a scenario. And for example, I'll give you a scenario here. So using drugs given to patients after an organ transplant can destroy the white blood cells. So that means that that person won't have as many white blood cells in their body. These people are more likely to get an infection. Explain why. Okay, so this is going to be asking you about using your knowledge about white blood cells and what they do, and how they're going to link into making somebody get an infection. Okay. Now for each of those on your sheet, for explaining the problems of blood-related diseases, you've got Katie has a particular rare blood disorder that she cannot produce normal hemoglobin. I want you to suggest what kind of problems Katie might encounter. You've got the same for John. He's got a deficiency of a clotting factor in the blood, and Louis has a black fan diamond anemia, and I want you to think about what problems that might cause him. Now once you've done all of that, I want you to email that sheet back to me and I'll send you some feedback. The next lesson that you need to watch is the heart, and again you'll be filling in a sheet for this one, and we'll be talking about the heart and how that works. This again links into the circulatory system.